public meeting to order, the public hearing to order. This is regarding application 823-122 Watchog Road, improvement of Farm Road in wetland and upland review area, including culvert crossing of Hall Hill Brook Oak Ridge Dairy LLC.
Can you turn it on?
I don't know.
Can't hear you.
It's on.
You just have to be real close to it.
All right, sorry. Okay, the legal notice, the Town of Somers Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 4 at 6:30 in the Somers Town Hall Auditorium, 600 Main Street, Somers, Connecticut, to hear the following application: 823-122 Watchog Road, improvement of Farm Road and wetland, including culvert crossing of Hall Hill Brook Oak Ridge Dairy LLC. At this hearing, interested persons shall be heard and correspondence received. Application materials can be viewed in the Town of Somers Land Use Office. So first the applicant will present.
On? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Attorney Dory Reiser from Kahan, Kerensky, and Capicella. I am a land use attorney, and I'm representing the applicant in connection with this application. I have with me Jay Ursery, who's worked on the plans. We have a representative of the applicant, David Moser, and we have two of the soil scientists who worked on this project, Rick Zulik and Donald Perizek. As you might recall, you've heard a bit about this application already. It first came before you for receipt in January. I think it had just come in maybe a day or so before, so you didn't have a lot of time to review it. Continued it over until the February meeting, took some testimony, but then decided that it would be in the public interest to have a public hearing on this. That brings us to tonight. And since this is an official, formal public hearing, even though you've heard a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, we want to create a record for review if ever it becomes necessary, and put the entire presentation back on the record. So with that, what we're going to do is reference, as noted in your legal notice, the limited scope of tonight's review is the regulated activity, and that regulated activity is the work either within a wetlands or the upland review area. And the only work that's proposed in those areas is the improvement of an existing farm road. That farm road will involve the creation of a cul-de-sac at a stream crossing, and it's necessary to get to the other side of the stream, and you'll hear this from Jay because that's where our well and our power source is from. So that is the scope of what we're presenting tonight, that regulated activity. This has nothing to do with a manure pit, a manure lagoon. Those plans that were previously before this and other commissions in town are off the table. It's limited in scope to this farm crossing. Now, I will note, if the road construction was through the wetlands and did not involve any filling or excavation with the wetlands, that would be permitted as of right. But because we have the associated culvert with it, that will potentially cause some interim impact to the wetlands, that takes it out of the permitted as of right agricultural or farming exemption and puts it in your purview for review. So with that, I think, Jay, why don't we give you a chance to do a brief overview of what's involved, and then we'll talk about, well, you know what, I'm going to back up. First, I think it makes more sense, let's talk about the regulated resources on site. We have Rick Zulik and Donald Perizek, who did the delineation out there of the site to locate where the wetlands are, so then we could design a plan that is going to cause the least amount of impact. So briefly, although I know you have the January report that was prepared that talks about the delineation and a functions and values assessment, I just very briefly want to have Donald come up, introduce himself, and talk about how the delineation was performed. Okay?
Yes. Yes, my name is Donald Perizek. I'm a soil scientist.
Maybe you can even put it on the edge there of that table, so you don't have to hold it.
So, I guess as far as my qualifications go, I worked with USDA, FCS, and NRCS for 33 years, and then doing soil survey work as a soil scientist all over the United States. Much of my work was done here in Connecticut. And since then, I've been working with Rick Zulik as a private consultant soil scientist. And I did the delineation out there following the Connecticut methodology, delineating wetlands based on drainage class. So I found poorly and very poorly drained soils out there, as well as the pond area. The pond area is mapped out as a wetland area based on a water courses definition, and then I also flagged the adjacent area where the capillary rise of the water table would be present next to the pond. The pond sits right in this area here, and then we have Fall Hill Brook, which is a perennial stream, and that's the crossing. So associated with that stream, we have some alluvial soils. Those are floodplain soils, and those were mapped out. So they meet a double definition. They meet the definition of poorly and very poorly drained soils, and they're also considered alluvial floodplain soils, and that's part of the Connecticut definition of a wetland. So I flagged essentially the area around the pond, this area, and then the area below the access road. So this access road was put in years ago. As best I can see, the pond was not there in the 1934 photos, but it was there in the 1990 photos. So at some point, I don't know when it was built, but it's an old agricultural farm pond dug out. There's spoils placed up in this area, and this access road was, constructed out of those spoils, and there's spoils on the outside. I didn't do delineations, outside the scope of the project area. We also have some drainage coming off of the road here that was captured in the delineation. There was a pipe here, and then there was an intermittent stream that fed into the pond, and that was also delineated as part of the project area. Also,
Excuse me 1 second, Donald. Donald, 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt. But can you stand on this side so that the commission can see what you're pointing to as well? I'm just worried that some of them are having trouble seeing. Maybe if you stood on.
Yeah. So this is where the Hall Hill Brook comes across the perennial stream, flagged both sides of that small alluvial floodplain, and then it kind of widens out, down in this area. This is actually the narrowest point of that floodplain for that stream there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Was everyone able to follow what he was showing up? Great. Thank you. I think that's great for now. Thank you. Come on, where you are.
So having done that wetlands delineation, JR3 then took the flagging and plotted it onto his plan and was able then to develop our plan, which we're going to propose right now.
Do you want me to keep that over there for you?
Yeah, that's fine. For the record, JR3, Russo and Associates here representing Oak Ridge Dairy. Before I get started, I'm just going to pass out a couple of things here, a little housekeeping. We've got our green cards here, and these are what is from that as of today in today's mail. They're not all there. There's some missing, but I wanted to get you those before I forget, which I will do.
Thank you.
And I've got a couple of handouts here that may be helpful as we go through this. I've got the PC GIS aerial here with some markings on it. If you could just pass those around, if you could, Dan. It may help you a little bit in looking at what we're talking about here. And again, for the record, some of this stuff you already have, but I think we should put it in. I've got the original January letter from Rick Zulik talking about the delineation of the soils. And we also have a new letter from March 3rd from Rick Zulik as he reviewed our revised plan. So I want to submit those to the records, and we'll talk about those a little bit too. And we've got an alternatives analysis, which again has been submitted, but I'll submit another copy for the record here. And I also have one for each of the members. So when we start to talk about this a little bit. And I think that covers it all. So let me walk you through the plan. I think that's probably the most important thing here. So,
as we all know, this is an application essentially for the improvement of an existing farm road. The road comes in off of Ford Bridge on the easterly side. Ford Bridge is over here on the left-hand side of the plan. And we come in right opposite. I'm going to walk over here to be able to read it. We're coming in right opposite High Meadow Crossing, which is a newer, I don't know how newer, maybe 15-year-old subdivision or something like that. Newer to me, anyway. The entrance is right here. The farm road comes in off the road right there. And the existing well and well house, pump house is located right here. I've kind of got it highlighted in brown. I've also put a little dot on there on that aerial so you can kind of see where it is. And the existing road comes off here, Ford Bridge, continues through and comes out, actually crosses the brook and goes out into the field. And Donald actually described it very well. This is the pond. When the pond was dug, dredged, however they did it, probably 60, 70, 80 years ago, we're not sure, they pulled material out, they piled it up on the side here, they piled it up over here, they piled it up over here, and they created this road as they dug it. And the road's been there probably ever since the pond was built, and it has been used to access this field. So what we're proposing basically is a little bit of widening here, some regrading up here by the road, taking our water and power from here and bringing it over here and bringing it across. And in order to do that, we're going to put in a new culvert. And the culvert that we're proposing here is a 60-inch corrugated plastic pipe, polyethylene pipe, with a flared end section at the inlet and a plunge pool, energy dissipator at the outlet. And what we did is we actually oversized the pipe, which allowed us to essentially bury or sink the pipe into the ground. And there's a detail that I'll just flip over and show you here quickly. There's a detail here that kind of shows how that works. So essentially we're taking about the bottom third of the pipe, and when the material is excavated out of the stream bed, it'll be put back in that pipe as it's put back together, and it'll create essentially a natural bottom within the pipe. And that's something that's talked about in the alternatives that we have shown you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But
Jay, may I interrupt for 1 second?
yes, go ahead.
And I wasn't here at the last meeting, but at the last meeting, were you still talking about a 45-inch pipe, and the 60 inches is
Originally, it was proposed as a 42-inch.
42.
It was a 42-inch pipe, and the reason for the 42, and I think it might have been somebody asked the question, well, how'd you come up with a 42-inch pipe? And essentially, when we go downstream and we go to Durkee Road, we looked at that. So what do we have there? We know we haven't had any flooding issues. There's more drainage area contributing to that because it's downstream from where we are, and we match the size. Well, now we want to bury some of the pipe, so we bumped it up to the 60-inch pipe, to the 5-footer.
But, sorry, to Dory's question, that was, at the last meeting, we were discussing a 60-inch culvert.
You were?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we've got the 60-inch now, which allows us to essentially embed it in the stream bed itself and put that natural bottom in, and it actually comes out to about the same width as what's currently there during a normal flow in terms of the width of the actual stream itself. So the brook will come through, it'll go through the pipe. There's an energy dissipator here or a plunge pool, and again there's a detail here on the backside, which you have. It's depicted here. It's essentially a depression with stone.
And one of the things that, in talking with Rick Zulik and Donald today, which I probably didn't mention, but he brought up to me, and I don't even know if it's in his latest letter. It might be. But what it does is it actually creates a little diversity in terms of some different type of habitat out there, because it's a punch bowl, and if you can imagine it as a kind of a depression where the pipe outlets, okay, and it's going to hold water. It's going to be a little ponded area, which there currently isn't anything like that there. There's some flow. As Dave Moser has told you, at certain times of the year, like this past summer when we had a very dry July, August into September, or right into the fall, if I remember, my lawn was a little peaked, but there was no flow in the stream at all. It was dry. But this little area here, this energy dissipator plunge pool, is going to hold it. It's a little ponded water area, so it's good for amphibians, good for habitat. There'll be frogs and so on and so forth in there, maybe even some fish if there are any fish in the brook. So that's going to be located here. We then cross, we come over through the wetland, and we've got an area over here that'll be gravel. The vehicles will be able to turn around. The power and water will come, again, from the well house to the pump house, come out through the road. It's buried, it's underground. Again, I think it was Drew that asked the question, how does that look, or what's it going to look like? It's shown again here in the section where we've got the electric line here and the water here that's all buried below the pipe as it comes through. So that's a basic overview of what we're looking at in terms of the construction. In terms of disturbance area, which is in your application, there's a little over 4,300 square feet of actual wetland disturbance right in this area. The rest of it's all in the upland review area, and the actual end of the circle here is outside the upland review area. So, those things said, let's talk a little bit about alternatives. And you've all got a copy of this. You don't.
I do.
You do. Oh,
I just wanted
we need this.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. And my partner, Tim Kuhn, who did the design for this, put together this analysis after we had some discussion, and after it was after our field walk with Joanna. We went out and we talked about this, and that's when Tim and I actually had talked about embedding the pipe prior to that. And when we got back to the office, we talked about some alternatives. And I think if you look in the application, the first alternative was, well, we're not going to do anything. We could just leave the road as it is. History has shown us that they drove right through the brook out into the field, and I suppose we could do that. Oak Ridge has some pretty heavy equipment, some big farming equipment. Could they do that? I think they could. Clearly not the best thing to do in terms of the brook itself. So we didn't even consider that. But it is an alternative, and I think it's talked about in the application. The other thing that we talked about, and again, I think it may have been Drew that brought it up initially, was, well, why can't you come in from the other side? And the reality is we could. We could come in from Watchog Road, and it's about 2,000 feet at the closest point, coming off of Watchog Road, coming southerly through the field to this area where we're going to bring the power and the water across. And you may recall that I don't know if it was Dave Moser or Seth Baylor at one of the earlier meetings talked about, their operation and how difficult it is to get enough cropland to do what they need to do. And they're trying to preserve as much cropland as they can. And in this alternative, this 2,000 feet of new access, would essentially result in about 3/4 of an acre of loss of cropland, because we're coming through the field in an area that's currently planted in silage, and we're not going to be able to do that if we put a driveway in there and come off the Watchog Road. So that wasn't something that we actually considered initially. We didn't think it was a good idea, not only because of the distance and the loss of cropland, but because it keeps the activity off of Watchog Road and brings it down over here where it's probably less intrusive to the neighbors.
If I could just add in on that.
Really?
If I could add in on that also. When you look at these feasible and prudent alternatives. As you know, feasible is can we do it from an engineering standpoint. And prudence, as defined in the regulation, is economically and otherwise reasonable in light of the social benefits. So economics is one factor. Constructing a 2,000-foot new access when we already have an access that we just need to upgrade is another factor. But also when you look at the loss of almost an acre of cropland, when farmland across Connecticut is becoming scarcer, that's a social impact, not just for farming in general, but for my client specifically as well. So we didn't feel that met the definition of a prudent alternative, not just, again, for the economic reasons, but for the loss of significant cropland.
So in working down the page of the analysis, we get to number 3, which I think Joanna may have brought up initially was, well, can we put a bridge in here? And the reality is you could. We could bridge this and eliminate the disturbance. But the reality of that is cost. And as it happens, we have another project in another town now that we're working on where we have a crossing for a driveway to get into a facility, an agricultural facility, and it's a box culvert, a 3-sided box, so it preserves the natural bed of the stream, but essentially the thing is set down over the top of it, so there's really no disturbance of it at all. There's wing walls on either side, and it sets on there. They put it together with a crane, and the contractor is pricing it right now, and the cost to do that one was about $180,000. And the span is not as wide as what we have. We've got about a 70-foot wetland span here that we're crossing. The one on this other project was 28 feet. So ours would be over 180,000. It'd be well over 200. Might be 250,000. So is it an alternative? Yeah. Is it prudent? No, we don't think so. It's way too costly and certainly not something that Oak Ridge could take on.
Before you go on,
Yep.
just because we're going to tag team here a little bit. I'm also on the whole, it's not a prudent alternative in our opinion, is because I know cost isn't the only factor, but if it's cost prohibitive, and one of the alternatives is to do nothing and just use the farm road as is, which we maintain would be more destructive to the wetlands with the heavy equipment going over it than what we're proposing, that just doesn't sound prudent to me. When a backup alternative is something that we know will directly interfere with heavy equipment in the wetlands, that the cost factor isn't justified there.
So moving down the list to number 4, which was the original design with the 42-inch culvert matching what we had down on the road below. And we took a look at that. The area of disturbance of the wetland disturbance is the same. It's a little over 4,300 square feet. The cost is certainly reasonable at about $15,000. And that could be done. We showed you that originally, but then after thinking about it and going on the site walk and doing a little brainstorming and discussion with Joanna and Tim, we thought, well, why don't we just go with a bigger pipe and embed it and give it a natural bottom, which is something we've done on other projects. And that's alternative number 5 here on the list, which is the embedded 60-inch culvert. We feel this is probably the best alternative, allows you to create the natural stream bottom. It's about 55 inches wide of actual stream bottom, which is similar to what's there now. We'll use the actual material from the stream as we put it together. And the cost of that is just slightly more than the $15,000. It's probably about $19,000, maybe $20,000. Certainly doable in terms of Oak Ridge's budget for this project. So we feel that number 5, the embedded 60-inch culvert, is the way to go here in terms of looking at alternatives. You've also got, and I guess I could let Rick Zulik talk to you about these. You've got Rick's original report, which describes the soils, and Donald just went through all of that with you and gave you a very good description of what they found when they were out there doing this delineation. But you've also got a revised letter from Rick Zulik that was dated yesterday, I believe, which talks a little bit about the alternatives analysis, and he gives you his opinion now because he hadn't seen the embedded pipe before. And actually, in his original letter, he didn't feel that even with the 42-inch pipe that there really was much of a, I guess, impact here. Trying to remember.
Jay, sorry,
Go
did
ahead.
you have, you handed me that March 3rd report, but did you have other copies of that?
I do. I've got one for everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The commission hasn't seen that yet.
All right.
In fact, Jay, just picking up on what you said, in the January letter, based on the 42-inch pipe, Rick Zulik said, in my professional opinion, there should not be any negative impact to wetlands. So even on the 42-inch pipe, we seem to think that that was no long-term negative impact and no short-terms that couldn't be mitigated. Now, this March letter addresses the upgrade into the 60-inch pipe. And still concludes, and I'll let him speak to that, that still concludes that this will provide the least possible short and long-term environmental impacts to the project, primarily because we're locating it into the narrowest part of the stream there, and also because it's a historically disturbed portion of the site.
So why don't we let Rick come up and go through his letter of March 3rd and talk to you a little bit about his thoughts and his comments there, so I can just get out of the way here so Rick's got the microphone. I got a copy of the letter right there so you can refer to it. I've got it as well.
Just
Good evening. For the record, my name is Rick Zulik, soil scientist. We did the original work in terms of the delineation. With the revised plan, I was asked to relook at this thing. As you know, I had done a letter on January 6th, but did a revised letter on March 3rd. And I trust you all have copies of it. But I think the highlights are that in terms of the revised plan comments, I'd stated that many alternatives were discussed regarding the proposed crossings, or the alternatives are defined in the alternative analysis, which you have a copy of as well. Because this farming activity requires approximately 4,378 square feet of disturbance and filling, our recent discussions were focused on the most effective crossing that would provide the least possible short and long-term environmental impact. The bulk of the proposed disturbance, and this is really important, and filling, will occur within the existing roadway. And it's been historically disturbed in the past. So we're talking about a disturbance and some filling, but please note that it's within an area that's been previously disturbed. Let's see. As stated in my prior report, I felt the original design should not provide any long-term negative impact, but recent discussions were focused on other environmental impacts, such as the passage of wildlife, reptiles, and fisheries, as well as an undisturbed flow of water along the southern flowing Hall Hill Brook. Now, this new pipe will allow for both a natural bottom, as talked about by Jay, and it's really going to match well with the width of the stream. I think one other thing that I'd like to mention is the scour hole is to be installed at the outlet and will ensure against erosion, but it'll also provide some additional environmental diversification for both the flora and fauna. So, I mean, any of the wildlife or any of the critters that want to pass through there will do so in an unrestricted fashion, and it adds a little bit of diversification that was not there before. In conclusion, my letter states that the proposed farming activity will greatly improve an existing farm road and result in no significant negative long-term environmental impact to the wetlands or the wildlife.
thank you. Does the commission have any questions for Rick or for Jay or for Donald in connection with what we've presented thus far?
On the culvert description, the cross-section, there's a line that says unsuitable material will be removed. What's the unsuitable material we're talking about?
not structurally sound when under the actual road bed itself. So in other words, when we're excavating within the actual wetland area adjacent to the brook, those are hydric soils. And those aren't the type of soils that we want under our new driveway or under the pipe itself in support of the pipe. So those soils are the perfect soils to put inside the pipe to reline the pipe to provide that natural bottom. But it's not something that we want to use under the driveway or in the bedding for the pipe. That's going to be gravel. So, and that's what the note is talking about in terms of suitable soils. One other quick thing that I want to bring up, and then I'm sure there's going to be some more questions, but you may recall at the last meeting that we showed you some photographs of the chia timber out there that we went on the sidewalk. And one of the things that showed up in the photograph is, as this stream comes suddenly right where we're pumping, it makes kind of an abrupt turn, almost a 90-degree turn. It starts heading back to the west. And on that outside bend, there's an area where there's some erosion and the slope itself is failing a little bit there. And there's some erosion and some cave-in. And what will happen is actually, as this is constructed and the plunge pool is put in, all of that will become armored and it'll all be repaired and seated above that so that erosion will then be gone and the new plunge pool itself will take care of all the energy dissipation as the water comes through the pipe and takes its turn, continues on westerly. So that one area of erosion that Joanna showed you in those photographs will be taken care of as part of this improvement to the actual crossing.
Other questions?
Questions?
I can send those photos back around. I think, just for the record, Jay identified sort of the exhibits we have so far. I guess I would just add, if it wasn't explicit, we had two versions of the site plan. One had been, let's see, that's interesting. One was dated December 30th, 2025, and then there was a second plan with that date, but with a revision date of January 29th, 2026 with the embedded culvert. And then my photos as well from January 15th, just for the record. But I think you covered the rest of them.
That's when the photos were taken?
Yeah, the photos were taken January 15th, 2026. Luckily, between snow.
Between snowstorms.
I can see ground, which seems very long ago. But here, I'll pass them backwards to you. And then. Yeah, okay. Okay. But the photo that Jay was referring to, sorry, some of them you have to turn the page because they'll be upside down or right side up. But let's see, there's the side where I wrote January 15th, 2026. You see on the bottom a zoomed out version of that 90-degree turn. And then on the back side, there's a more zoomed in picture, but you have to flip the page. It's taken from a different, taken landscape instead of portrait. But and then you'll also see in the photos, there's one photo just general showing more the front of the property, closer to Four Bridges Road. You can see the pump house that houses the well and kind of the entrance to the access road. And then you'll also see a couple of views of the road as well, especially the one all by itself. But I'll just send those back around.
In any of your visits up there, have you noticed any wildlife in the streams or any?
So when we first started talking about that, and Dave Moser had indicated that it dried up, and in discussing it in our office with Tim Kuhn, based on the mapping, it's a named water course and considered a perennial water course. So I said, well, are there any fish in it? And I never saw any. and I am somewhat of a fisherman. I wouldn't say I'm the best fisherman in the world, but it's not a place I'd be taking my fishing pole to go fishing. Let's say that. There is some information available on the Deep website where they do some monitoring, and they do a little work to determine what kind of fish are found in different streams and in different locations in the state of Connecticut. I couldn't find any information on this brook in this area. There's a lot of information on the Scannick River. There's information on a lot of other streams. Broad Brook is one. There's information there. I couldn't find anything in this area on this section of Hallbrook Brook. So I'm not sure that they ever, deep ever looked in this area to see. So if somebody were to ask me if there were fish in there, I would say, well, there may be, but it's not somewhere where I'm going fishing. Are there some frogs and amphibians and so on? I'm sure there are, without a doubt. It's habitat for them, and I don't think anything we're doing here is going to jeopardize that habitat. In fact, it may improve it.
So I have a couple questions. Thank you guys for bringing the extra materials and going over this tonight. And just to, I think, add to the wildlife and fish comments, so the farm pond presumably has fish and other aquatic, and that is connected to this brook?
The brook actually flows through the farm pond. If you look at this little document that I gave you, and we talked about a little bit about this at one of the other meetings. But what happens is, and I hope you can all see this, so I don't put my fat finger in the way. The brook comes down through this area here that's vegetated. And as it gets close to the wooded area here, it actually swings around the outside, and it comes back into the pond over here at what we would probably say is the northwest corner of the pond. There's also road water that's coming in from that location, which I think Donald talked about a little bit. If you were to drive up Four Bridges Road, you'll see that there's guide rails along the easterly side, and there's a pretty deep drainage ditch that follows the road. That also comes into the pond at this location. It all flows through the pond and comes back out up above in this location, and then comes down through here. So that's one path. There's also a pipe out of the pond down here in the corner, which is shown on the plan stuff. There's a 15-inch RCP here, which comes under the farm road and outlets down here and flows into the brook. And my only guess is the reason for that maybe was that if you had a really big storm and it didn't flow through fast enough, that this is kind of there to maybe keep the water level so it doesn't rise up and actually come over the road here. So, and it's an old pipe. I think it was probably put in when the pond was originally dug. But to answer your question, the brook does flow through the pond and back out. And are there any fish in there? I didn't see any, but I would guess that there probably are.
So that pipe that you just mentioned, I mean, that's functioning pipe as far as you understand? Or?
I didn't see any water coming through it, but it's assumably it probably did at one time. Maybe it needs to be. In fact,
but it's set above the current water levels. You're saying?
Yes,
so
exactly. It's like an overflow.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
When I was out there, I didn't see any water, going through that pipe either. In that vicinity.
Okay. So, can you speak again? I appreciate that we're trying to just reestablish the record because we talked a lot about a lot of this on the prior meeting in January, but I don't know tonight if you spoke to the overall length of the pipe, and I think I had some questions at the January meeting as to how you came up with that pipe length. Can you just speak to that a little bit?
The pipe itself is 42 feet. And there is a flared end at the inlet, and we've got on the outlet end, we've got the plunge pool, which creates a little more length. The actual length of the pipe is there, so we've got a 12-foot wide driveway. And on the sides of the driveway, we've got slopes that are not super steep. So if we had a vehicle that kind of slid off the driveway, we don't want them falling over the edge and getting down into the ditch. We've got something that we can maintain here, and that creates that extra length. So we've got 12 feet, and we've got side slopes on either side of it. And I think your question was, why do we have so much disturbance? If you've got a 12-foot wide driveway, why do we need a 42-inch pipe? And it's basically, maybe your table here is a little bit more than 12 feet, I think. And maybe it's 15. But if you could envision the driveway being that flat surface, and then side slopes on either side of it going down to the top of the pipe, that gives you that length that we're talking about and creates that disturbance. And based on your comment, I went over with Tim Kuhn in our office, and I said, well, could we make it, less? And he said, well, not by grading it. No, he said it's graded, and it's graded so that it's not going to erode. And he felt that this was the safest way to do it. And in talking with Dave Moser and the guys from Oak Ridge, obviously safety is part of their concern, to be able to have it wide enough so when the vehicles are crossing it, they don't have to be worried about sliding off the side and having an accident.
Okay, thank you. And I think you had stated in January that to accommodate the 60-inch culvert, the grade is kind of going to go up to the crossing and back down, so that adds to this overall slope factor that gets us to that 42-foot pipe. Is that correct?
That was during the February meeting. I just want to make sure.
Thank you. February meeting.
Yeah.
Time flies.
You have a better memory than I do, but yes, you're right. We did talk about that. Because we do have, obviously, a larger pipe than what the depth of the stream bed is, so we need some cover over the top of it. I think the finished grade here near the top of our pipe is up at just over 222, and the existing ground, and I'm straining my eyes here now, is maybe about 217 or somewhere thereabouts. So yes, we're filling up over the pipe. So you can imagine we're coming along the driveway, and then it's going to come up gradually, it's going to come over the pipe, and then it's going to come back down.
Okay. All right, thank you for clarifying that. So one other question I had was relating to the material being placed inside the culvert.
Yep.
Again, I believe at the February meeting, thank you, I'd asked a clarifying question on that, and I believe you had stated that gravel was going to be
I think I
placed in
talked
there?
about gravel. There is a little bit of gravel in the area where the current crossing is. However, I think, and I'll let Rick speak to this, but I think and Tim in our office thought that the actual material excavated out of the wetland, put in the pipe, would be the best material to use. But why don't I?
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, Rick.
the plan is to use the naturally occurring material there within the pipe to maintain consistency, throughout the run of the brook.
Okay. So the interior of the pipe is smooth, correct?
Yep.
How do you stabilize that material?
Just like the rest of the brook. It should stabilize.
So you're installing it during essentially a no flow period, right? There's going to be no water moving through it, so you're putting.
Yep.
It's not going to be dry soil, but it's not saturated either, right? So relatively dry soil. It's placed there. I don't know. Do you compact it or anything, or just?
No. So if you can envision this pipe setting down in the soils, if the pipe were up higher and you filled the pipe with material, it would wash out. But the elevation of the original brook and throughout the pipe is going to maintain itself. It's going to be embedded into the soil, and it should find its natural elevation.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate this material being washed out. Again, if it were up at a higher elevation, it certainly would. But remember, there's going to be a dam, if you will, at the lower side, one at the upper side as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a level run, and it'll be cobbles and natural, gravels and rocks and things like that.
Mixed into the material in the culvert?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
I always like to draw pictures. They yell at me at the office because I'm always ruining a piece of paper because I got to draw a picture. So and I can't draw here, but if you can envision this table as the stream bed, and then we go install the pipe. Let's say we're not putting any material in. And the bottom of the pipe is down here at the floor level, okay? And then it comes that 40 some odd feet, and then the stream bed jumps back up here to the level of the table again. So what would happen? What would happen is it would naturally fill in with silt and sediment from the stream, and it would essentially develop a new stream bed right through it, and it would stay there. We're going to make it happen faster because we're going to put the material in there as we put the pipe together. But what Rick is saying is essentially we've got this hole, which is the bottom of our pipe, which is going to be filled with material, and it will stay.
Okay. And then I guess just one other minor question is about the scour hole on the downstream side. Does that require any kind of maintenance over time?
It could if it were to fill up with silt and sediment to the point where the water were just flowing right over the top of it. You would want to dig out the silt and sediment and clean it. Typically when we do a development type plan, whether it's a subdivision or commercial, whatever it would be, there would be some notes on the sediment and erosion control plan that talk about maintenance. And one of those maintenance items is always taking a look at your drainage system, which the plunge pool would be part of that drainage system, which could require periodic cleaning depending on how much silt or sediment were to build up in it. This is a little different because we're not in an area where there's a lot of activity. It's more of a natural stream, so whatever happens there is going to happen. But if it were to fill up totally and there were no more stone and the water was just coming right through and causing an erosion issue as it left, then we'd want to clean it out. Mm-hmm. So it's something that Oak Ridge would have to keep their eye on, and they're going to be in there, yearly for a few months each summer. So
man, so they're going to fix it.
Right, they're going to fix it.
Okay.
They're going to make sure that it works properly.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Just to jump in, since it's related to the plunge pool, I was actually going to ask a question about the plunge pool. There was talk of that plunge pool providing some benefits, which I agree. That stream takes a very unnatural 90-degree turn, and there's a lot of erosion undercutting at that sharp angle. But I was wondering if, and I understand that riprap is used to armor and stabilize, but I wondered about the ecological benefits mentioned. If that plunge pool is going to be riprapped, is that still going to provide, diverse habitat to the area, or not as much if it's maintained as riprap and cleaned out?
It's provided, even with the riprap, it's a depression, and it will provide a pool of water. So there will be a little pool of water there where the pipe discharges. So if you look at the detail, which I know you've seen it, the preformed scour hole has sides, so it's actually a depression in the ground, so it will hold a pool of water. And I think that's what we're talking about. So there is a little pool there that'll be in place during most of the time, all of the time when the stream is running.
Okay.
So the animals that work the edges of the brook that don't want to go into deep water will work their way around it and through the pipe to go up the stream or down. And then things like fisheries that may or may not exist in there will appreciate the fact that there's a pool of water there. So it does add some diversity, and I really don't know of any negative impacts that it would create for any of the habitat or fauna. You're going to get some additional plant life that could form in there that you wouldn't normally see. There's some additional use by whatever critters frequent the area.
Okay, thank you.
I know we talked about the alternative plan, but I just want to say, just imagine none of this were to be approved. What would you have to do? You're going to have to fertilize the fields. Currently, there's got to be accessing them somehow. So I'm imagining you would just drive through this stream, because you would be allowed to do that.
We could. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the fields are being fertilized now. The fields will continue to be fertilized whether this is approved or not, and we will either have to maintain fertilization through the existing farm road with some heavy equipment, which just digs it up, digs up that stream bed more so than if we do it right. So yeah, the fertilization is going to happen, is happening, and will continue to happen whether this gets approved or not. And we will most likely fall back on the existing conditions, kind of what we've always been doing as the alternative. But we don't think that's the best alternative. We think this is a much better one for our needs and for us to do it efficiently and properly and also environmentally.
Is your side finished?
We are, yes. I reserve the right to.
Could I just add one thing and another little housekeeping thing that I forgot to mention? The signs were posted on the property as was required by your regulation, even though we had snowstorms and blizzards, and
we had to have more signs made.
We had to have more signs, but there's 24 or 26 signs that went up the Friday before the storm. We went back out on Tuesday, stood them all back up, dug them out. I drove by them tonight. The one on the corner seems to be missing. I think somebody took it and stuck their own sign there, to be honest. There's a different sign there. It's not ours. I don't know what it is. But the rest of them, I think, are all there. So
they were effective. I got at least a dozen phone calls. So.
I actually got some calls in our office. People wanted to know what was going on. I'm not sure how they got our number, but they did.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a large parcel and seemingly a lot of signs, but it's
we wanted to make sure we complied with the regulations and the spacing of it.
Yeah, we only had 6 previously, so we had another 20 made to cover everything.
Yeah. So, and we won't send you a bill for having to go pick the signs up at the printer. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up the hearing to the public. We ask that you identify yourself. We do also ask that you keep comments to what the Wetlands Commission is able to rule on. This is the impact to the wetlands, the stream crossing. Also, I know we had stated at the last meeting that there were a lot of things that agriculturally are permitted that would not normally be permitted. That's not to say that that applies here. But the other thing is, this is not a give and take, asking us questions and then we respond to you. We're just going to hear what you have to say, and then the applicant can respond, and then you will have another opportunity if you want to make more comments. So, John?
Good evening. I have a few handouts. May I approach your table? So I've made a notebook to help inform and educate the commission. I've made a copy for each member. I made a copy for the record. I made a copy for the applicant's counsel and the applicant's representative from J.R. Russo, which I just hand those out now. Also,
your name and
yes, Attorney John Parks. I have an office in Enfield, Connecticut. I'm here representing a number of the neighbors to this parcel. again, John Parks for the record. At the request of some of the neighbors to 122 Watchog Road, I attended your February meeting. I listened to the applicant's presentations. I listened to the members of the public's questions. I listened to the commission's responses to those questions. In response to one of those questions, at least one member of this commission remarked that the commission lacked the authority to regulate activities outside the upland review area. That statement is not true in accordance with the laws of the state of Connecticut, which is why I prepared a 54-page notebook to educate this commission as to what their authority is and what their responsibility is. The law in the state of Connecticut is that the Conservation Commission has the authority and the responsibility to consider the impact from activities beyond the upland review area when there is a potential for adverse impacts on wetlands and watercourses. Storage of liquid manure just outside the upland review area has the potential for an adverse impact on wetlands and watercourses on this property, even beyond the upland review area. This notebook will take you through, and I've numbered the pages in this notebook, and I'm going to refer you to the pages that are applicable to my comments. And if you follow along, you'll see that these are not John Parks' opinions. These are decisions from the Connecticut Supreme Court, the Connecticut General Statutes, and your own regulation. I don't have enough copies for everyone in this room, but I left a pad on the chair right next to where I was sitting with a pen, and if you put your name and your email address on that pad, I will get you a copy of this notebook. The notebook states the statutory and case law authority regarding this commission's rights and responsibilities regarding activities beyond the upland review area. In addition, this notebook will help demonstrate why the activity proposed in this application has the potential for adverse impact on the watercourse and wetlands. The pages in this notebook are numbered at the bottom in the center of the page, and I've circled it to help the board be able to access it quickly. And I'm going to start with page 42. And page 42, the Planning and Zoning section of the Connecticut Bar Association sponsors webinars every 2 years for new Conservation Commission members. And a copy of the materials from the most recent webinar are attached in this notebook starting on page 42. And it informs new members about the laws concerning the commission that in the case of new members, they are just joining. If you move now to page 47, which is part of the webinar materials, near the bottom, Attorney Sitka, who many of you are familiar with, quotes from a 2016 case that the agency may rule that any other activity, like the storage of 80,000 gallons of liquid manure located within the upland review area or any other non-wetland or non-watercourse area likely to impact or affect the wetlands or watercourses, is a regulated activity within your jurisdiction and part of your responsibility. The storage tanks on this application fit that plan. I'd like the commission to turn now to page 41 in the notebook.
Excuse me, could you just tell us what paragraph on page 47 you're referring to?
I'm happy to. We're right down near the bottom. It's in quotations, and I'll read it, the entire quote. The agency may rule that any other activity located within such upland review area or in any other non-wetland or non-watercourse area is likely to impact or affect the wetlands or watercourses and is a regulated activity. The case site is there. It's the Saddle Ridge case. It's a 2016 case, but I've also supplied you with Supreme Court cases, Superior Court cases, and appellate court cases. And I'm not asking you to rely on my interpretation of those cases. I've included the entire case, so you can read the case and make your own conclusion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You wanted us to go, you wanted to refer us back to another page
41. And 41 is a very good page for the members of the Summers Conservation Commission to spend some time with and focus on. And what it is, it's a photocopy of Mr. Ursari's plan with highlights and some measurements that weren't included, but I was able to scale it because it's a 1 inch equals 30-foot scale. And the scale tells me that 80,000 gallons of liquid manure are being stored 22.5 feet away from the upland review area. Just to give you a concept, that's the equivalent of 4 average in-ground pools filled with liquid manure up gradient from a watercourse and a wetland in a storage unit that has no containment facility there. So if one or all of those units fail for whatever reason, you've got the potential for 80,000 gallons of liquid manure to flow downhill into what? The wetlands and the watercourse. So you may or may not be aware that this same matter was on the February Planning and Zoning meeting, which I also attended. And I listened to the presentation, which was a little different than the presentation tonight. But at that meeting, one of the Planning and Zoning members asked about the 4 tanks, because if you look at the plan, there's 4 rectangles on the plan. How tall are they? How much volume do they hold? How wide are they? What are they constructed of? Nothing. Okay? And so one of the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, his name's James McPhee, asked questions about the cubic yards, because there's a limit on cubic yards in your zoning regulations, and he was trying to determine if this exceeded it. It did by about tenfold. But in that, he found the amount of cubic yards in there. And so what I did is I consulted with a professional engineer. And I asked the engineer, who unfortunately can't be here tonight because he's given a seminar in another state, but could be here at a future meeting to answer questions of either the commission or of the applicant. But what he said is that according to the member of the Summers Planning Commission, because I got the transcript of that meeting and I supplied it to him, I also got the transcript of your last meeting and supplied it to them, that 400 cubic yards of liquid manure converts into 80,784 gallons of liquid manure being stored. So the application for the special permit is pending. We're going to find out at the next meeting what the next step there is. But
may I just point of clarification, Attorney Farb? The special permit application is not pending, and there's been no determination yet by the zoning commission whether an application will be required.
all right, so here's how it's going to go tonight. We did not interrupt you during your presentation. And if you want to direct a question through the chair to me, you may do that, but you may not talk to me directly.
It was just a point of clarification.
Well, keep it to yourself. You'll have your chance to be able to talk after we're done. So, in the notebook on page 50, so Steve Trinkus' letter is on page 50, and it goes on to page 51. And Steve Trinkus, a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, says, as for the 4 tanks, they are located upslope from open watercourse. Any leak from the tanks will result in a discharge of liquid manure into the watercourse. Steve Trinkus has a lot of questions regarding this application, and you can see those on his letter on pages 50 and 51 of the notebook. Why isn't there a containment system around the 4 tanks to prevent a leak of liquid manure into the environment? Also included in the notebook is a 7-page memorandum of law, 4 full court decisions from pages 2 to page 40, all supporting the fact that this commission has the responsibility to consider the impact of the application beyond the upland review area. Now listen, if those containers were not on your plan, as the applicant has not said a word in the presentation tonight, not one word about the 800-pound gorilla in the corner of the room. There are 4 storage tanks. What do we know about them? Nothing. You're approving a plan based on inadequate information. This plan is incomplete, okay? If you, so the law is clear. Your authority and responsibility with this application is clearly set out in the webinar that Mike Sitzka was authoring, in the 4 court cases, in the memo of law. So here's the question for you tonight. Does the storage of 80,000 gallons of liquid manure with no containment system upslope from a wetland and watercourse have the potential, that's all it has to have the potential for an adverse impact on wetlands and watercourses? That's your question tonight. If you turn with me to page 5 in the notebook, beginning with the title Conclusion, I'd like to read what I believe the options are for you regarding this application. That is exactly the situation here, referencing the case just ahead of the conclusion. Storing thousands of gallons of highly concentrated manure distillate without any protection in the event of an undetected minor leak or catastrophic breaching of the tanks or extraordinary storm event that would result in overtopping of the containment vessels that would dump large volumes of concentrated nitrogen and other contaminants into the surface and onto the groundwater and the ground and the groundwater below. That pollution would ultimately go into the wetlands and watercourses, contaminate the groundwater, pollute homeowners' well. The Conservation Commission must protect the public's interest. It must review the entire project, not just the crossing. The containment tanks are, it says uncertain number and uncertain volume. Well, we know there's 4 of them, but we still are uncertain about the volume, other than the comment that was at the special use permit hearing, are located 22 feet from the upland review area, 120 feet from the wetlands, and 172 feet from the edge of a watercourse. The tanks are up gradient from the upland review area and wetlands and watercourses. The containment vessels are located over groundwater supplies that provide not only potable water sources, that provide the only potable water sources for residents in the area. But because they have given no specifics, you cannot assess the potential this hazardous material storage. Consequently, you must deny this application until a full application is committed. At the very least, and this is by no means would be sufficient for the Conservation Commission to grant approval for this potentially harmful activity, before this application goes forward, Oak Ridge should supply at least the following: the exact location and details of the surface water body located 187.5 feet and identified in the attached survey. We see a little snippet of it. We don't see the whole thing. 1-foot contours from the tank to the water body to the wetlands and the watercourse. Details on the containment vessels. It is irrelevant that they may be emptied daily. It is irrelevant that they may be removed after several months. Usage and storage elsewhere. What is relevant is that at the time they have concentrated material distillate in them, they present a hazard to the public health and our natural resources. A designed impervious containment system consisting of reinforced concrete pad with impermeable barrier below the monitoring system with real-time alarms that will indicate when the barriers have been breached. A system of containment around the vessels, typically a moat of sufficient size to contain 150% of the volume of the containment vessel to account for additional rainwater that may fall on the vessels and surround the area in an extreme storm event. The design for covering the vessels to fully contain vapors, odors coming from them, which would otherwise constitute a public or private nuisance for the residential neighbors surrounding the property. A transportation indicating the hours and operations of truck that will be coming and going, characteristic of truck routes that will be followed. Efforts will be taken to clean up the streets after the inevitable spills from these large tankers. An emergency management plan in the event a leak, catastrophic failure, or overtopping tanks, odor emanating from the storage facility, and pollution of the streets resulting from the spillage of the trucks, which has been widely observed. Groundwater monitoring at appropriate locations surrounding the storage facility with periodic reports to the Conservation Commission to ensure that groundwater in the neighborhood is not being contaminated. A condition on any approval, if granted, that Oak Ridge extend the public water supply to any property owner whose well is adversely affected by increased nitrogen or other contaminants in the groundwater. A decommissioning plan and performance bond for that. If the applicant ceases its operation in this area for any reason, there must be assurances that the site will be restored. Bankruptcies, for example, leave regulators with no ability to get corrective action. So I've just brushed on the contents of this notebook, and the reason for the notebook was so that you can review this at your leisure. But last but not least is pages 52, 53, and 54 at the end of the notebook. Page 52 is taken in the center of Summersville. at the intersection of School Street and 190. And this is the back end of the vehicles that now take a regular trip from Jobsville Road in Ellington to Watchog Road in Summers, and they leave what's on the back of that truck on the roads for that entire 7-mile journey. The next page is containers that are the property of Oak Ridge in other locations. There are no wetlands in connection with this storage. It's shown here. And so some of the concerns that are specific to this location may not be to that location, but with such a lack of information concerning these 4 rectangles on their plan, I went around with my phone and took pictures myself because I think this commission needs to know what's going on. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Jill Conklin. I live at 3 School Street. I live at 3 School Street. I also own a couple other properties in town, one being a building lot up on Hall Hill Road, very close to the location of this applicant tonight. I served for many years on the Summers Zoning Commission. I was seated as chair for many years. I sit here before you tonight with the experience and appreciation of the responsibility you and I have carried when evaluating applications that may have long-term environmental impact on our residents. My concern tonight is the groundwater protection. This proposal involves 80,000 gallons of waste, animal waste, and then other additives, as I'm told, to be stored in 4 open-top containers just feet away from the Uplands Review, in a town where our homes are serviced by well water. My experience in this commission has a difficult decision where the impact may not show up today, maybe in 5 or 10 years, or maybe longer. Groundwater contamination occurs. Remediation is complex and costly, and often incomplete. I respectfully ask the Commission to consider whether adequate hydrogeologic analyst or secondary contamination and long-term monitoring are in place before approving this application. My other concern is not whether manure is inherently hazard, it's whether this scale and location is appropriate in a residential well water area. Nitrates move into groundwater, and once an aquifer is contaminated, remediation is extremely difficult and costly, if possible at all. I have a friend that lives in town. She has nitrates in her water in a high level. She is having a really hard time trying to find a way to get it out of her water. And she's drinking bottled water. Nitrates are known to cause cancer. Does the Commission have a map on the aquifers in our town? I know you're not going to answer my question. I'm just putting it out there because I was looking online and I could not find an aquifer that shows me where the aquifers are in town. But I would like to see that. Hang on here. what is I know John was talking about the tanks. I'm concerned about what the tanks look like. I know they're open tanks. There's supposed to be some kind of funnel or something in top. But, stormwater, we can have a heavy storm. We have heavy snow. We can have a heavy storm. They're going to overflow. It's going to get onto the ground. It's going to take the least path of resistance, run downhill, get into water, seep underground, go into our aquifer, which is a soil, rock soil base. And once nitrates are in there, it moves very freely. An aquifer is not a tank of water. It's a porous soil with fractured rock. Once contaminated, it spreads three-dimensional, very hard to contain. This isn't just about the houses that are right around this 300-acre piece of land. It's about the houses that are serviced by aquifers, which that land could leach into. And if you're not familiar with aquifers, you might want to look it up, because I haven't heard anyone talk about that. But this site is located over public drinking. If this site was located over a public drinking reservoir instead of a private well, would we be using the same design and concepts? My concern is the agricultural waste, not from a local farm. This is an industrial waste being transported into our town and stored in a residential area where homes depend on private wells. In Connecticut, many communities lie entirely on groundwater. If this facility fails, whether through a liner issue, storm overflow, truck accident, long-term leaching, the contaminants will impact our private drinking water directly for many years, if not forever. I was also concerned about what would be in place to a backup, some type of something around these tanks that would contain them if they were to let go. I am obviously speaking against this applicant, and I would encourage any resident with a minimum of a mile away from this to, if this was approved, to get their water test advance, know what they have in their water, because if there is a problem, you're going to want to know it wasn't there before. And I didn't hear anything about deep. I missed the first few minutes of the meeting, but I'm just concerned if wells were to be contaminated. And like I said, I have a building lot up the road. Plan on build there someday. I'm going to drill a well. It's beautiful water. I know it is, because I lived right next door, and I would hate to not be able to do that. And what if when we talk about remediation, if something does happen, what if this company goes bankrupt? They may go bankrupt if we have a well issue. What's going to happen? Does DEEP step in like they did with EDB back in the day and give people filters for their homes? I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm very concerned. I think it's the wrong location, and I do know that I heard somebody talk about when zoning approved manure stockpiling. That was not for this type of industrial application. That was for somebody that might have a horse or two, and the neighbors, people like to store stuff away from their house. So if this is their lot and their house is here, they're going to store it over here because they like to get it far away from their house. But then it affects the neighbor. That's what that was about, storing it in an area not close to your property line. And it was a small amount. It wasn't a big amount. And this isn't, I know they're referring to this as a farm. I know it's farm land, they farm it, but that's not a farm. We don't have waste farms in Connecticut, last I knew. But I know you guys are going to do the research, and I don't know too much about a hydrogeological study, but I would hope that maybe, you can ask the applicant to give you what you need, if that's something you need. You can always ask them to provide things that you don't have, And if you don't know something, like when I was on zoning, if I didn't know something, I talked to the attorney, I asked for help, and I hope you do that as well. Thank you for your time, and again, I'm in opposition of this application.
Point of order for the chair. If we're going to go along the lines of having comments regarding these storage tanks, I'd like to be heard on that. That we specifically did not address that in our presentation because we don't think it's part of your purview tonight. But if you're going to be allowing questions, I think I would like to address that first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, for the record, Dory Reiser, I don't dispute that the law allows you to review activities beyond the upland review area. There's no question. There's case law and your regulations that say you can look at that. But you have to look at what's happening in the area, upland, and see if you have jurisdiction over it. The only thing that's happening in the upland review area is fertilization of fields. We are proposing to bring in tanks to temporarily hold the manure, the digestate that will fertilize these fields outside of the regulated area. But that is no different from what's been happening for 50 years on this property. In the past, it was hundreds of dump truck loads of solid manure being trucked up in the spring and the fall and dumped directly on the fields, fertilizing the fields. So instead of being in a contained area, it was right on the fields. Hundreds of dump loads in the spring and fall, all put on the fields. All we're talking about now is having these holding tanks outside of the upland review area that will now hold the fertilizing product, which is a liquid form of manure as opposed to a solid form of manure. All critical and integral to farming operations. Farming, as you know, includes cultivation of soil, and cultivation of soil is exactly what we're talking about, fertilizing it and adding enhancements so that your crops grow. So, in our opinion, the only activity that's happening in the upland area outside that is being requested that you review is an exempt activity. Your regulations specifically provide, consistent with state statute, that in section 211-4, permitted uses as of right and non-regulated uses, A1, grazing, farming, nurseries, gardening, harvesting of crops, and farm ponds, blah, blah, blah. These are allowed unregulated as of right in the wetlands. So if they're as of right in the wetlands, they're as of right in the upland review area, you have no jurisdiction over fertilizing of these farms. Again, they've been fertilized for the last 50 years. They will continue to be fertilized regardless of what happens with this digestate storage. But fertilization is not on the docket before you tonight. It's not jurisdictional, and all of the questions that we've heard thus far have to do with the manure storage, and that is not something that you can regulate. There are a couple of misstatements that were made. I want to be very clear. There is no special permit application pending, and there was no special permit hearing held by the Planning and Zoning Commission. What is before them is a determination as to whether or not those storage tanks require a zoning permit. Most of the comments in the engineering letter that you got from Attorney Parks have to do with zoning matters. This is not before you. The Zoning Commission will decide if and how they are going to regulate these storage tanks. What's here before you now is wetland jurisdictional impacts, and those related to farming and fertilizing of the crops in the fields up there are not within your purview. I don't think that there's any line of questioning that should continue or comments continuing having to do with the storage tanks. It's beyond the scope of this commission, and I would respectfully request that you do not allow those to continue. Having said that, I will sit back and let you continue the public meeting, reserving the right to make additional comments at the end.
Not yet. Does anyone else in the audience choose to speak?
Joan Rivard, 74 Maple Ridge Drive. I don't live anywhere near there. So, but I love this town. And I have a couple of problems I'd like to address to you that maybe you have or have not thought about. Because they talked about pollution of the aquifer, which is part of what I'm concerned about. It has happened in our town when the prison was dumping and they had to put supply areas in that area with water for years and put in whole water systems so they could have public water. So that's one issue. Also, we have no idea, I don't think there are any records on the size of the aquifer that sits under that part of town, or in many parts of the town, because we have mostly wells in Summers. But if you're going to be using this field area, that much more manure, which they're adding, I believe I heard at one of the other meetings, they will add water to it to dilute it, to get it to the proper level of nutrition for the fields. What if the aquifer, and we all know that our whole country weather climate is changing. What if the aquifer is emptied? And what if all those houses around them, they're fairly recent and some are very old, they don't have any water? Will Oak Ridge supply them water? I don't think so. They're not going to want to. So the town of Summers, are they going to have to pay to put in a whole water system for these houses? So that's one of the things I think of. But then I have a very simple outlook for you to look at. I don't know how many of you do jigsaw puzzles, but a jigsaw puzzle is made up of many little pieces. And every single piece is necessary to make the puzzle. So you're doing, yes, you have to address the culvert, but it's part of a much bigger picture. Please, when you're thinking about what you're doing, think about the entire town of Summers. The farmers are important, the residents are important. There's got to be a way to deal with it somehow, but please, please consider our entire town, not one 60-foot pipe.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Laurie Coombe. I'm at Ground Zero here. I'm 27 High Meadows Crossing, which is the corner of High Meadows and Four Bridges, directly across from the well house. I'm sorry, I don't know that gentleman's name, but he was asking about wildlife there. There are about 100 geese that live in that pond from spring through fall. There are turtles, frogs, and there are raccoons over there, just to let you know. I don't know anything about the fish. What? Foxes? Yes. Oh, and the deer. Yeah, the deer come out. I don't want to pig pile on everything, but what I do want to say is if there is any kind of catastrophic failure of the liquid stuff, there's a culvert in my front yard in our water management area that goes directly under the road right to that section. So I wouldn't want anything to be coming into my front yard. I also liked what the previous speaker said. I lived in Massachusetts. I moved here 3 years ago. I love the area. I love all the farms. I'm not anti-farm at all, but I would like us all to work together. And I was at a meeting in the spring about the airstrip, and that fellow seemed to have paved it before he got all of his ducks in a row. So what I'm hoping we don't do is say, oh, this is just about putting a culvert here so that they can go over it on this road, which, by the way, could I see a picture of what that road looks like? Because I live right across the street from it, and I can't see any road. So I think it's so overgrown that, anyway, I would hate for us to just go ahead and say, this is all it is, when there's another plan down the road, and then have to say, well, we already have the road in, and, now we want to do this. And if we allow these containers, what's to say there won't be 6 or 8 or 10? So I'd like you to keep that in mind, if you will.
This is probably midway down the road facing where the crossing would be.
Okay, so the pond's over here.
Yes, and there's more road further down the road. It's actually, you can see green, like moss or grass along the road. So, it's maybe not, doesn't look like a formal road, but it's a farm road. We might say it's a farm road, but yeah.
In the spring, there's a lot more water around here. So, Thanks.
Anyone else?
Ann Levesque, 2304 Bridges Road, Summers.
What was your name again?
Ann Levesque.
Oh, Ann Levesque.
My dad owned the property before Oak Ridge took it over. We had potatoes. And my dad bought the house that a farmer who had tobacco on Four Bridges Road was selling it, and he bought it, so it made that whole area the Chance Potato Farm. My dad put in a packing house. Are we talking about that pond next to the packing house on Four Bridges Road?
Yes.
Okay. I live at the other end of Four Bridges, where Hulbert Road goes down. For about a year and a half, something's been going on. I had no clue what was happening until I came to this meeting. Yes, we did have a problem with the prison, the flow and they said we should put in a well, which we did, because we didn't want bad water coming into our home. But I had no clue what Oak Ridge was doing. I don't know where the tanks are, where the sewage is, but it's been flowing for about a year now. You can hear the machines when they're next to my house putting in the sewage, the manure. So I thought, what is it doing to the land? I mean, we don't even know what's happening with all this manure, and even though I don't know what the percentage is on that field, 280-acre field. But I said, well, at 82, I'm not here for very long, but I wonder what it's going to do to my family who's going to be living in that house and my grandchildren. And that's what's concerning me. The deed is already done on that piece of land. It's a beautiful piece of land, 280 acres. But the other people, they have a chance, to stop that stuff. So I don't know what the long-term effects are. But I didn't think I would be speaking tonight, but after what I've learned, I'm speaking. It's up to you guys.
Thank you.
Hi.
Jim Leeds, 25 Blue Ridge Drive. We've had a lot of discussions about the aquifer and potential spillage and containment, contamination of the aquifer, which I appreciate that is an issue. I'm also concerned about the scope of, I know they want access to the pond and the well. My understanding is the well is very important to their project. So I guess my concern is contamination of the aquifer is one thing. If they're going to be pumping, I don't know, 80,000 gallons of water from the well or more daily, how long is that aquifer going to hold up? I'm equally concerned that my well will go dry. Not just that it will be contaminated, which is significant, obviously, because I live close to the prison, so I'm familiar with what went on in that area and the people on, fortunately not where I live, but other side streets that they have bottled water for years, to drink and cook. So that is a concern, but I'm also concerned that I won't have any water. I go out and one day I'll be trying to water the lawn or take a shower and that won't have any water because they'll be pumping it all into the trucks and then trucking it out into the field. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Okay.
Well, one of the things to say, John Parks again. So, trucking waste from another town into Summers, into storage tanks, is not farming. We're talking about the storage aspect of it. There's nothing about farming that includes containers, 80,000 gallons of liquid manure stored in a residential area. This is an industrial dairy operation in Ellington that has a waste problem, and this is the solution. We don't have to accept that. It's not. She's saying that we're not before the zoning commission. Well, I was at the meeting. I don't think she was, but the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission in February, is considering and waiting for a letter from, of all people, Attorney Sitska, about whether this requires a special use permit. The answer is it's going to require a special use permit, and it's because this is not the same as what's gone on there for years and years, because this is modified product that is stored liquid. And the fact that it's liquid is the big problem for the wetlands. It's very easy to transport this nitrogen into the wetlands in a liquid form, whereas in the solid form, that was the predecessor of this on this farm, takes a long time to break down and become part of the soil. This just runs, just look at the road between Jobs Hill Road and Watchow Road. This just runs, and it is not farming, it's not exempt, and this application is incomplete. They would like to ignore the 4 rectangles on their plan, but they put them there, and that's part of this application.
Thank you.
We did receive 2 written letters that I'll pass around to the commission that were from residents. Like every other, there's 2, they're all like together and sets.
Might be the guy sitting up there.
Yeah, both letters were against the application. I just want to give the commission a chance to read them. One just came this afternoon.
These are extra.
Oh, I guess for the record, I'll, I think I gave them all away now. But one was from George Van Tassel. 15 Blue Ridge Drive.
Oh, thanks.
And then one is from Joan Sears. I'll give her address. 24 Farmlia Drive. And the letter from George Van Tassel references materials that he provided me as well. The nature of those are their browser searches with AI overviews, with prompts such as is digestate harmful to wetlands? Can digestate contaminate wells? Those sorts of questions. The source, is an AI summary in each of these instances. So if anybody wants to see those. That's what they have in the text. Okay, if the applicant wants to respond.
Thank you. I don't have a lengthy response because I think I've already said it, but much of what we heard with regard to opposition has to do with the storage of digestate and the spreading of digestate on the fields. Digestate is another form of manure. I think you know that. Digestate is the liquid form of manure after it's been processed to take the energy out of it and the solids out of it. It's a fertilizer. Okay, it's not a hazardous waste. It is a fertilizer that is used in many different farming operations for fertilization of fields and crop production. So there's really no argument to be made that this is not part of farming, which is an exempt activity. If we look at your regulations, the definition of farming is use of land for the growing of crops, raising of livestock, including horses, and other agricultural use. The growing of crops implicitly requires cultivation of those crops. There's no question that the statute and your regulations permit as of right farming in wetlands. We're not even talking about wetlands here, we're talking about upland now, but farming in wetlands. And farming includes soil cultivation. And if you do a search, which I'm just since everyone's giving their searches tonight, here's my search. I only have one copy. It's from the internet. It says soil cultivation, also known as soil tillage, is the process of preparing and managing soil to optimize conditions for plant growth. And one of the methods is adding amendments to it, incorporating organic matter such as compost or manure. And that can enhance soil fertility and structure. I will submit this for the record. It's part and parcel and integral to farming. Again, a non-regulated activity, permitted as of right. So whether we're putting hundreds of dump trucks worth of solid manure on the fields to be spread, or whether we're putting a tank of digestate on the fields to be spread. It is all part of the soil cultivation, fertilization of these crops. Again, putting this manure on the site has been done for 50 plus years. It will be continued to be done in some manner. This is just the more effective, more efficient, more progressive manner. Things change. Everyone evolves. Methods evolve. That's a good thing. What my client is doing is a wonderful green initiative that is heavily regulated by the applicable state agencies. So it's not like he's doing something they are doing something that's unregulated. It's just not within your purview, again, because the application of this material to the fields is fertilization and exempt as farming. So with all due respect, I believe this is a complete exempt activity, and the only thing within your scope for review is the activities that we addressed in the initial part of our presentation, having to do with the work in the upland review area, which is the work to that existing farm road and the installation of the culvert. Thank you for your time. I hope that you will consider this and feel fit to approve this application this night.
Hello. I just have a question. Isn't it against the law in this state for liquid manure to be leaking on streets? I looked at it and I read that it's against the law. And yet everybody just acknowledges that it's all over the street. And if that's being allowed, what else is going to be allowed? I don't understand why that is. Those trucks are being driven through Ellington and Summers and wherever else they go, and they're leaking. How is that not? Why is that law not being enforced? Does anybody have any idea or feedback about that? I mean, I just don't know why we allow it. And if that's happening, where so many people are saying it is, then what else are we going to be missing that might be happening that is not going to be followed up on the way it should be?
Yeah. That would be helpful. It sounds like we're probably at the end of public comment. I just wanted to respond a little generally to some of the comments, which, you know, I do understand the concern, and there very well may be a process before planning and zoning, as Attorney Parks mentioned, from my understanding. The nature of many of the comments, well, you know, maybe valid concerns, and I'm not here to defend the wetland statute and you know, how it's written, but it does really narrow in the purview of this particular commission to issues of surface waters and wetlands. And while I hear a lot of concern about aquifers, there are no actual aquifer protection areas in Summers, aside from, I think, a tiny bit of soapstone falls in, but no what's considered a public drinking water supply watershed that's regulated. But even if it was, that's not the purview of this commission. This commission, it's really wetlands, watercourses. A lot of those other issues could come up before planning and zoning. The groundwater concerns, all of that is you know, a public health issue, not a wetland and watercourse issue. And as the applicant's attorney mentioned, there is a very broad exemption in the wetland statute for farming. And it's, you know, up to the commission. I'm staff, but up to the commission to determine if activities meet the
meet the exemptions built into the wetland statute and into their regulations. Just one point of clarity, it was mentioned by Attorney Parks that it's sort of the responsibility of this commission to consider work or activities outside of the 100-foot upland review area. I believe the language states that they may, if they find that it's, now I'm fumbling because I have too many things in front of me, but it's not, I'll say it's not happened in my time working in town here. I don't believe for the past 10 years anyway. Not that it couldn't happen, but in this case, the commission was really focused in on the crossing because that was really what triggered this application, was the crossing and not the fertilization of fields, which, the commission can decide whether that meets the agricultural exemption. But as staff, I was operating under that framework that fertilizing the fields fits in with the farming activity, and the one thing that kicked this out from being exempt is the fill within the watercourse. So that's why we've been really focused on that issue, but I do understand the concerns being brought up. Let's see, if anyone else has any comments. Let's see. Oh, and also concerns about similarly groundwater drying up. DEP regulates a lot of these items, such as withdrawals of water. I know other town staff is looking into some of those issues as well. The director of public health in town has been communicating with Connecticut Deep, and we are aware the farm is regulated as well, their operation by Connecticut Deep. So I just want to address some of those general things that, the commission still has, items to consider and think about, but just that a lot of what's said likely doesn't fit within this commission's jurisdiction, but you may have another opportunity at another commission as well.
Yeah, and as far as issues outside the upland review area, yes, if there is the potential for impact to the wetlands, this commission can comment on that, but it's been more making recommendations to, when we had planning and we had zoning, we would make recommendations about concerns. There's a lot of, and I think in court cases, speculating or expecting something may happen is difficult to prove. If you use that as a reason for denying an application, I think, again, we may see that there is a potential for a problem, but if we can't prove it, sometimes the best we can do is express our opinions as a commission and send it along to PZC.
And I found the language I was struggling to find before. So it's, I believe, what Attorney Parks was likely referring to, in addition to the case law, the definition of a regulated activity in the Town of Somers wetland regulations describes operation within or use of a wetland or water course, and it gives a bunch of examples, and then it qualifies it by saying within 100 feet measured horizontally from the boundary of any wetland or water courses is a regulated activity. The Commission may rule that any other activity located within such upland review area or in any other non-wetland or watercourse area is likely to impact or affect wetlands or watercourses and is a regulated activity. But again, there's other portions of the Wetland Act and regulations to contend with, such as the farming exemption. And another comment spoke to maybe the scope of this farming operation, the size and the nature, and maybe referred to it as, I believe, industrial. There's not any call out, it could be a hobby farm, someone growing plants in a garden. It can be we have a large commercial greenhouse operation in town that also has the benefit of the farming exemption.
Just as an additional point of clarification, and there's no change in the scope of this farming operation. The same amount of fields are going to be farmed as have been farmed over the last decades. So it's just a different manner of fertilizing, but the scope of the farming operation is not changing whatsoever. It's the same property.
I would like to say something as well, Jill Conklin. So we're here to believe that this big expansion of a road and a culvert is just to continue what they've been doing for 50 years. No, it's for what's going to happen at the planning and zoning, or what's coming down the road. This is just the beginning. Yeah. And I have a question. I asked about the aquifer. Does the town have a map of the aquifers? Because I have this list from the state of Connecticut, and it lists the towns that have adopted aquifer protection areas. I'm going to give it to you so you can look into maybe getting that for our town.
So this is likely, I'm not sure exactly the source of this, but if this is a state list, it's likely speaking to, Connecticut's aquifer protection areas. Summers does not have any aside from a tiny little...
Down in Somersville.
Actually, does it not even?
I think they do down in Somersville. It comes up on the map as a little tiny dot.
Yeah.
And I think that was because back when zoning banned storage tank, above ground and ground storage tanks in the Somersville area.
Well, there's a specific definition of the aquifer protection area, and it's so aquifer protection areas from what you gave me, and I believe that is consistent with Connecticut Eco's explanation of their online GIS mapping. Aquifer protection areas define the land that contributes groundwater to active public water supply wells that serve more than 1,000 people. So my educated guess is that there's not a well in town that serves more than 1,000 people. Usually it's more the level of like Connecticut Water Company, a utility level. So in this area, and like the project area, there's no aquifer protection area. I'm not saying there's not a aquifer that people draw water from, but it's not a regulated aquifer protection area. But again, the aquifer is not the purview of this commission, as important as it is.
We've questioned that.
Right. So an aquifer is not a wetlands or water course that this commission has any jurisdiction over. If Summers has any aquifers, that would be a zoning issue.
Correct, yes.
So I just wanted to make a couple comments in response to the comments received today, and I appreciate members of the town coming forward tonight and expressing your interest in this and concerns. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I do think, one, we have an application in front of us specific to the road improvements and a culvert crossing. What they may use that for in the future is not what we're being asked to weigh in on at this point. Should other uses of the property trigger concerns of this commission and the authority that we have, I do think there's an opportunity for us to revisit and potentially require additional actions at that time in the form of permits or whatever might be necessary. So I do think it is a little unclear to all of us, including residents of the town, as what Oak Ridge's big picture is for farming in Summers. With all due respect, I made that comment in February, and
you want to address that, Drew?
Well, I do think that would be a good opportunity. I'd like to just finish my comment real quick, and I was going to kind of get to that, but, this is a very large field. There's several other very large fields in town. They obviously get a lot of attention anytime there's equipment and activity. The fact that there was other plans for this field that drew a lot of public interest. Now everybody's wondering what's next. What are the plans? What is Oak Ridge doing? So I do think, several people came in and said, we are not against farming. I believe those statements to be true and faithful. But I think, as farmers, you do owe it to the residents of the town to be a little more forthcoming with what your plans are. And obviously there's a lot that you don't need permission for, but to be a good, resident and property owner of the town, I think it's in your best interest and ours as well to just share your plans and talk openly about that. And I think some of this might come out in that conversation. I completely agree that, the use of the fields, the fertilization that's needed to grow the crop has been and will be necessary to the farming operation, completely exempt from everything that we regulate. There is, questions in my mind about, when you start talking about storage of fertilizer, whether it's manure, engineered granular fertilizer, whatever kind of fertilizer, when you start storing products, I don't know how that plays into it, but that's not what we're being asked to even review today. And it's not clear whether you guys are moving forward at this point with placing storage tanks out there. So I feel like potentially a path forward here is to address that once we know more about, Oak Ridge's plans for other activities on this field. I do think, with regards to the road and the stream crossing, Oak Ridge has done their due diligence to present alternatives, sufficient plans to understand how they plan to construct this and, appreciate those efforts. But yeah, I guess to get back to Oak Ridge, if you guys are willing to, if you don't mind explaining maybe a little bit more big picture as to what your plans are.
Are you guys good with that?
Yes, please.
So for the record, I'm David Moser with Oak Ridge Dairy.
I'm not sure if it's on.
There we go. David Moser, Oak Ridge Dairy, 122 Watchog Road. So what is Oak Ridge's plan for the future? So I have in front of me our vision and our mission statement. Oak Ridge vision is to be the farmer of the future in a world where people know their farmer. So our goal is to be transparent and to be the farmer of the future, innovating into new technologies. That goes along with our mission. Our mission is to build a better future for families by producing safe and healthy food while delivering value to our employees, our owners, and our community. So we're here to provide safe and healthy food. That does not involve contaminating aquifers. That's not safe and healthy. So that goes against who we are as a company. I did provide a letter to all the residents, so all the however many people we had to mail out, explaining what this is for. It is a driveway access to the farm to provide access to our irrigation systems. This irrigation system is used to fertilize and water crops. There's no secrets here. It is a autonomous system that will fertilize and water crops to grow the best corn that we can. Oak Ridge owns both pieces of property here in Summers. We own over 600 acres in Summers. It is not a waste issue from Ellington. We own the property. It's a fertilization practice, and we will continue to be farming this property. It's owned. It's purchased back by the state for farm development rights, so we'll continue to be farmed for the generations to come, even if it's not us, but we plan to continue to farm and grow food to produce safe and healthy food. Does that help? Any questions that you guys have for me?
Can you elaborate on, and I appreciate that, and I know this is getting a little off scope of the actual application here, but again, in the interest
I think it's a good way to share.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on, how you manage the fields and the nutrient needs? And I mean, there were some questions about, over applying. How do we know if it's being monitored properly? And, kind of why you need to do this. And I think you had mentioned about some a pilot study you did on Four Bridges or Herbert last year and kind of how that worked out.
So just to be really clear, this has anything to do with our our application. This is strictly informational for the board and for the town of Summers. So Oak Ridge is managed by DEEP, which is Department of, I don't know exactly what it stands for. Thank you, Joanna. And we have a permit with them because we are a dairy farm over a certain size. So we have a permit with DEEP that regulates, and then with that, and Joanna, help me if I get this wrong, we have a nutrient management plan. The nutrient management plan is done by a group of professionals that sample the soil, they know what our crop yields are, and they recommend to us how much nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, any nutrient that corn needs, how much that we need to apply. So our applications are in compliance with this plan that is submitted to the state, that is a regulated practice so that we don't over-apply and we can at the same time grow a healthy crop. So that is all put together. There's a lot of science that goes into that. And manure or fertilizer will continue to be spread because it's necessary for corn to grow. You need to fertilize. Just like you have to fertilize your lawn. If you want it green, you got to fertilize and you water it. Same thing with corn. Does that answer your questions, Drew? Anything I missed?
It does. It does. Thank you. Does anybody?
Any other questions that the commission has on where Oak Ridge is going?
Asking though about how the tanks function
I mean, so, yeah, Candy was just asking, I wasn't asking the question, but I don't know if you want to speak to how the tanks, the storage tanks are connected to everything you just explained.
Yeah, so we did explain that to planning and zoning.
Yeah. I'm worried about opening the door to a lot of non-jurisdictional issues, but for informational standpoint, and it is a public record because it was at a public meeting discussed with the Planning and Zoning Commission in February, which I was at and spoke at length with the commission about. We explained how this robotic apparatus works to fertilize the fields, and it draws the fertilizer.
So the truck comes to the field from Oak Ridge. Mm-hmm. It transfers it into a tank. The tank transfers it into the autonomous irrigation system, and the fertilizer is applied on the field. It's a very simple process.
Does this tank move across the field?
No. There's an autonomous irrigation system. So we used to have a tractor that did it, and now it's an autonomous system.
When you say autonomous, I'm thinking robotic.
It is robotic. That is correct.
Okay. So is there a machine that goes around and just starts laying it?
Correct. Yep.
And there are hoses that go into the machine.
It's connected. Yep, and all, again, operated off my phone. It's all, the nutrients are, we tell how much to put down of this, how much water, and it's a very scientific process. We have a great video on our Facebook if you want to see how it works. There's a great video on our Facebook that explains it.
Oh, nice.
So this is way off topic, but just so you guys are not, Oak Ridge is not a scary place. I put our email on this letter, and I can submit this for the record if you guys didn't get a copy of it, but we did get some comments, some people that reached out to us. We responded to them. Some of them said they were going to come here. I don't know if they did, but we are here to answer questions and to have conversations. I can leave my phone number if somebody wants to call me.
So correct me if this is true or not, but this operation as a whole, I mean, the road crossing is separate, but the fertilization program that you just described is identical to what has been done in prior years on other fields, including in Summers.
Yes, that is correct.
So you're just basically rotating through different fields as...
You are 100% correct.
And because that big, is that the storage tank you're referring to?
There is tanks on Hurlburt, and then the machine is in the field at Hurlburt. That is correct.
And because it's so technologically advanced, that addresses the issue of over-application, which so many people have had. I mean, there is a GPS grid that this robot goes up and down, so they're applying specific levels of nutrients to specific areas that completely coincide with the nutrient management plan. So because it's just so technologically advanced, we can really make sure that we're not over-fertilizing anywhere. Whereas look at in the past. In the past, there was hundreds of loads dumped in the spring and fall and spread And it wasn't as easily managed. You just have to overwater at the beginning of the season, right? And then at the end of the season, as opposed to now we can do it steady throughout the whole growing season, exactly in the right proportions. It's a much more efficient and environmentally sound way of doing it.
This is the gold standard for irrigation and fertilization.
Across the country.
Across the country, yes.
I mean, it's not just being done here in Connecticut, it's been done.
It's been done across the country, but it's the gold standard. We're not here to, we're continuing to innovate. We're the farm of the future. That's our goal. And our goal is where people know us and can trust us. That's what we're here for.
I think you should take an ad out in the newspaper to tell the Summers residents.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, the information is available.
And I think that's actually what's hurt us in the past is there's not a great form to, we've never had anything to hide, but there's not a great form to educate. You apply for a permit and then it gets blown up on Facebook memes. There's not really a great way for us to be education and forthcoming with information.
But you do have a lot on your website.
Yeah, our website and Facebook page has a lot. There's a video of this machine on our Facebook page. So that's open to the World Wide Web. So there's not a great forum for us to do that, but we are 100% open. And if people reach out, Joanna has my cell phone number, Jen has my cell phone number, anybody's willing to reach out. We're glad to have conversations.
The Summers Library often has speakers who come and speak to the townspeople.
Yeah, but nobody's going to go.
On the avenue.
I'm not a great speaker, so we'll have to work on that.
They don't want to see me.
Just one quick question. You said trucks come in and put the material in the tank and then it goes for, so how long is there actually this fertilizer material in the tanks?
So it's a continuous flow in and out.
Okay.
So when the machine's running, we're putting it in and it goes out.
Okay.
It's actually defined as a transfer system, not a storage system. That was a mistake on our side to label it wrong. We recognize that it is a transfer system. It's in and out.
And how often would you be doing any?
Continuously.
Continuously.
Yep.
Okay.
Through the growing season,
Through
right?
the growing season, it will be filled in the mornings, and then it will be emptied throughout the course of the day and come back the next day to be filled in the mornings. The only time it won't run is on Sunday, so there will be no filling that day, and it'll sit empty till Monday.
Okay.
It's really incredible. YouTube is a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
This meeting, the planning and zoning meeting, they described all this.
Yeah.
Just to save us some time.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. I'm nothing to hide, and I'll submit this letter that got sent out.
Yeah, I was just going to send around, I've got like the complete packet that was mailed out to abutters. I think there was 50 some odd certified letters sent.
Can I ask you a question about a letter going to the neighbors? I never got a letter.
Well, is that this
So I provided a list of
That's why I was
addresses.
confused as to what's going on, but very curious. I didn't know what to do, you know.
Right, so the letter, the requirement is that the letter go out to direct abutters to the property. So there was somewhere in the vicinity of 50 or so letters that were sent out, and they did provide certified mail receipts and all of that. But also the signage was available for people to view. There were two legal notices published in the Journal-Enquirer, which the chair read at the start of the meeting. But I did get quite a number of calls in response to the signs. So there was, I believe, sufficient notice.
Okay, well, I just thought they might have done something before the 280-acre piece had been started, but that didn't count, I guess.
Oh, on Hurlburt?
Albert Road, yeah.
No, yeah.
Albert and George Wood.
No, that didn't come before this commission.
That is not part of it.
No.
Do you have any further questions of us before we close the public hearing?
Wow.
Yeah, does anyone, or sorry, not, does anyone on the commission have any questions, or does anyone on the commission feel that any further information of any nature is needed. Just asking this before you possibly close the public hearing. Once you close the public hearing, you can't take in any new information. You can consult with town staff, but you wouldn't be able to receive additional reports or anything like that. So I'd only close the public hearing if you feel you've got all the information you need to make a decision. And then you don't have to make a decision tonight either. You could close the public hearing and think about it until the next meeting. There's a few options, but the timeline, we're still within the regulatory time frame, even if you go to the next regular meeting.
I think, there's sufficient information with regards to the stream crossing aspect. I do have some concerns about the questions raised about the storage tanks and the potential for those to have a negative impact. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to revisit that once planning and zoning weighs in on a decision from there, or if that's something we want to incorporate into this.
We can send a letter to
planning and zoning.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the mechanism for that would be. I think I hadn't brought it before the commission to make a jurisdictional ruling since the transfer storage of manure is outside of the upland review area. Yes, you can draw additional activities into your jurisdiction if you feel it's necessary, but the combination of both it being outside of the upland review area and farming, I didn't think to bring that to you as a jurisdictional ruling, but I would think that would probably be the case that the applicant would make if you did want to pursue permitting regarding the tanks, would be likely an application for a jurisdictional ruling first, but
just to clarify, I think my only concern is, one, personally, I think the transfer, storage, whatever you want to call it, is separate from application of fertilizer. And so that activity, I don't personally think is exempt or as of right, but I do think that kind of operation has, obvious spillage potential just in the normal course of operation. There could be catastrophic failures too. I don't know that that's likely, but just in context of that, in the proximity of the wetland and water course, I do think, one, just noting it for the record, two, I actually like Chairperson Formeister's recommendation about maybe just expressing some of our concerns to planning and zoning for consideration as they're looking at that matter. And in doing so, I think we would be able to separate that out from the road and stream crossing aspect.
So, and if you do feel that you need more time to review materials provided tonight, or if you want any other staff input, or possibly town attorney, then, you could opt to either close the public hearing and not make a decision tonight, or you could keep the public hearing open. I was just checking. I remembered our next regular meeting is a week later than normal, so I want to make sure that doesn't cause us any issues.
If I could just chime in on the farming exemption for a moment. So as I said ad nauseum, the regulations do require provide for that farming exemption for wetlands and water courses. Now, statutorily, a farm
if you look at the definition in the statutes, includes temporary structures or other structures used as incidental to ordinary farming operations. So I think not just the application of the fertilizer, the digestate in this situation, but any temporary structure to accommodate and facilitate that fertilization, I think is included under the definition of farming. Now, I don't say that to say, we're not going to be transparent. Obviously, my client wants to be very transparent and explain exactly what's happening. And if there is a process that's required for review, then my client will undertake that process. That is why we are here. That is why we're talking to the Planning and Zoning Commission about whether or not this is exempt from their review or if it requires a permit. We're not trying to dodge anyone. And even if exempt, as you can see, my client has no issues with providing that information. But I do think, I know you've got some reservation about, do you know enough about the transfer tanks, the holding tanks, whatever you want to call them. I would say even if you deemed that to be a little bit separate from the manure itself, it's still encompassed under farming because farming, again, extends to those structures.
I'm sorry, what definition were you citing?
That's the definition of farming that's provided in the statutes. Agriculture and farming is 1-1Q.
The state statute?
State statute. 1-1Q.
Drew, I also had handed out to the commission like a 4-page document from, I guess it was written when it was still just simple DEP and not deep, but it takes that exemption language and then sort of blows it up and discusses sentence by sentence, and then it gives that long definition that that she's referring to on page 2. It's the long italicized paragraph.
Yeah. So this is just a printout of 1-1Q.
I don't know if you want what I'm talking about.
Down there. I'm sure it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So see if you highlighted down there. The term farm includes farm buildings and accessory buildings there too.
Yes.
And other temporary structures and other structures used primarily for the raising and as an incident to organ farm.
Yes. That looks the same. Yeah.
See, it's right from 1-1.
Yeah. Closing the public hearing is the first order of business. I think. Are we forgetting anything? Yeah, Mr. I think so. I'm trying to think if we forgot anything, but
I'll take your copy.
It's a signal.
Yeah, if the commission feels they've got sufficient information to act on this application, then, you can close the public hearing. If you'd like any additional information, you can keep it open, and then you can decide after that whether you want to act on it tonight or not.
I think we should close it.
Would you like to make a motion to that?
Can I see it?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
I forgot to say these for non-existent planning and zoning.
I don't think you're seated.
Okay.
Oh, you just did? Oh.
Seated for who?
Non-existent.
She's been here all night.
Okay.
She's heard everything and been here all night.
Yeah.
She had the opportunity to ask questions. So.
Okay. Yeah, the formality of the meeting, I think we forgot that step. Okay.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, so is there any discussion from any of the members about closing the hearing? This has nothing to do with voting on the application. It's just whether we're ready to close it.
Taking any more information.
Right. Okay, no discussion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
Yep.
I should have told us why, and you might have been convinced.
Oh. Sorry, I didn't realize you were moving to the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too late for me to get discussion.
Yeah. Everybody already voted?
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. All right. Public hearing is
Thank you.
now on the agenda.
I'm not sure if that matters, but probably should have put it also as discussion decision. It should be also in the
I know, I'm really sorry. Thank you.
Just close the public hearing.
I like that neighbor. I actually tell she's coming here a lot. Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I failed to.
This is from my yard.
Okay, they're gonna deliberate.
That will be happy for me. I get to decide the rest of the day. I know. So yeah, so that's kind of so then I went to from the prison. From there to Washington, you get a waiver, so you have to worry about it again. Sometimes they don't even put it back up.
Sometimes at the public hearing, they act right there. Right. Yeah, I don't want to tell you how to do it, and I don't really know the right answer. I just want to be close. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You too, thank you. Yeah. Right answer to that. Yeah. They seem like they're really got no idea what to expect with this. So tell me something. Isn't it going to spill out of those trucks when it goes down that road, and it's going to get all in the top for fatality? 6 years. This will keep them off of the watchdog. They're going to have it on bridges that come to the wonderful watchdog. That's like, they might not know it.
Yeah, I know. I looked today. I saw four.
Just I wish I'm cold
Truck per acre. They've got really? The one in Eastfield? She says that was here. Why are we going to cost?
behind her. I say, this is what's happening. I don't know. August. What's the nature of it? I know. Not to disturb you, but something.
I registered it's amazing.
Sure, about for Christmas. I have.
Like contact on.
Did you hear what Chicago Sam? They closed all of a sudden. I did. You didn't hear anything down the way?
No, a lot of people ask us if we're going to close, and I think Between us and Target is the only place in Enfield left. Well, they do have.
Like, yeah, retail, like clothing and stuff, yeah.
And a lot of people don't like the West Springfield store.
And it didn't smell anywhere in church. And it is true. On the left, in front of,
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah. And as soon as I started going down, chasing the water around, I get up to the library. We put in fresh cream and because it was soaking wet. And I drove all in the neighborhoods over there. And it was all located in that area. So I don't know what.
You're getting in touch with Jen.
Locally, it happened in Mansfield. I don't know. What kind of smell was it? And she went into a Michael's store. She walked out with a $240 sewing machine. And they have her photo right there. So they're saying, does anybody know this woman? Is it close? Talk about there's cameras everywhere in the world now. How can you not know you're not going to be photographed?
There's a guy that stole a vacuum.
I don't know. It was only just
taken out in a car. You don't just
well, yeah, I can imagine 2 weeks. Are we going to get moving on?
Yeah, we were just trying to.
No, I never did. Just trying to think of something now before.
Spit it out. This doesn't do that. The feet, you drop it.
Right. You're going to be.
So the church has come, right?
That's right.
Now, my understanding is that this thing will be able to water everything, but now we don't know about.
Okay.
He said, because it is.
That's discussion past.
Yeah, we're on number 3, old business. Discussion possible decision application 825-207 Stafford Road, construction of addition and in-ground pool with patio and grading in the upland review area. Mark Christensen.
I know, poor Danielle.
She said every day.
No. Now can you hear me? Better? Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, good evening. Danielle West representing Giuliano's Pools on behalf of the Christensens at 207 Stafford Road. They're looking to install an in-ground pool and as well as a detached garage addition with a patio surrounding the pool and associated grading, all within the upland review area. I did provide Joanna with an updated survey. After the last meeting, there were some comments and revisions that we made. The biggest being the plantings. The homeowner decided on some plantings that they would like to include to mitigate the water runoff from the patio before it reaches the wooded area and ultimately the wetland patches.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
We're continuing with the meeting. Can you guys just step out there maybe and talk? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I can't hear very well, do you?
Sorry. Would you like me to repeat anything? Okay. Thank you. So they elected to choose some elderberry shrubs that can grow upwards of about 5-6 feet wide in diameter. So they'd like to do 2 rows of those staggered along the upper part of the driveway and along the fence. It's about an 80-foot stretch total. And that will hopefully... they decided to do a natural bed instead of a stone bed just to keep things more natural and preserve the area a little bit better. So that will hopefully keep the any water runoff from reaching that area. It'll leach into those shrubs in first. Another comment that was made was for
The equipment pad to be added to the site plan, that has been added as well. It'll be on the back side of the detached garage. So that will be in an area farthest from the wetlands. But again, the filter that they're using is a cartridge filter, so there will be no backwashing. They can just take the cartridge out and hose it off with the garden hose. Sorry. We also added the limit of the clearing to the map, just the extent of the silt fence. We won't be going anywhere past that. And then once the area has been final graded, they'll be adding the plantings. But just so you can see, there won't be any clearing beyond that silt fence line. I believe that addresses all of the comments that you made at the previous meeting, but if anything is still unclear or you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Sorry, I was distracted momentarily, but I can't recall if it was decided whether it would be a stone bed or whether, mulch, you said mulch.
Yes, they went with your recommendation. They want to keep the area as natural as possible,
yes. Yeah. And we discussed different plants and whether they'd be suitable, and so I think we're in good shape with the selection there. And, you can always discuss with me if there's selection of another plant, like anything on the list that I provided. I just wanted to make sure it would survive and have enough water.
Sure.
Yeah.
She answered everything, that we were concerned about? Yeah.
I did my best. I asked Joanna for a copy of the draft minutes so that I could go through and be like, okay, check.
So I have two questions on that regard. So,
sure.
And I might be mistaken, but I thought we talked about noting on the plan specifically the limit of clearing. I see a limit of disturbance, which is the soil, the areas that the soil is going to be disturbed, but the tree line that goes between the wetland and the construction area, I think you said, that there would be minimal clearing of the tree line. So is that definitively noted on here or no?
So I just noted it as the pink dashed line. Is yours colored? Is your copy colored?
Yeah.
Okay. The pink dashed line is where we're proposing to install the silt fence, and so they would be clearing to that point, since that's right along the edge of the permanent fence.
Okay.
And then the shrubs will be on the outside of the fence.
Yeah, so there's no clearing, it looks like the mitigation planting goes into what's shown here as the wood line of the property, if I'm interpreting this correctly?
Yes. Yep, so the shrubs would be along the top of the driveway and then follow along the edge of the permanent fence.
Yeah. Okay. So let me rephrase the question. I'm sorry, but is there any tree clearing associated with the construction?
So there would need to be some, yes.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be going farther than where the silt fence and shrubs are kind of drawn on.
Okay. So I would just recommend that be stated on here, just say limit of clearing. I think it says limit of disturbance, which could mean two different things, is I guess the point I'm trying to make. So the areas you're going to disturb to construct the pool versus clearing that you need to do to make room, If they're one and the same, that's fine, but I think adding that verbiage would be helpful.
We can put that in the motion too. And so, and I'm sorry, I was looking for something else on the plan, but so are you saying the limit of clearing will be that limit of disturbance as well?
Yes.
So maybe we could do that by condition or.
Okay.
And the other thing that Joan reminded me of was we had discussed permanent wetland markers.
Yes.
So that could also just be a condition
I didn't draw them on because I wasn't sure exactly
Yeah.
where they would be placed, but I remembered that we spoke about it, yes.
Yeah, and that can just be, in consultation with me.
I was just going to say that.
The placement would be
Yeah,
consultation?
unless you want to specify certain actually, you might want to specify whether you want it at the limit of disturbance/clearing, rather than like the wetland edge, or, so, and probably the wetland flagging is not apparent anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, motion to approve this application by somebody, and then we can discuss it more.
I make a motion to approve application number 825, 207 Stafford Road, construction of addition and in-ground pool with patio and grading in the URA. With certain conditions, and they are
Placement of permanent markers.
Placement of the permanent
with
markers.
Consultation with Joanna.
Okay.
Do you want to specify whether the markers be like at the wetland limit or the limit of disturbance? Or,
How about placement of markers? Discussing.
okay, maybe it'll be somewhere in between.
Yeah. Having the map by designating the exact areas of clearing and disturbance. And what else I need to add in there?
Yeah, you gotta read all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Sydney has it.
I got it around. Based on the following, the commission finds that the applicant submitted all necessary application materials pursuant to section 211-7 of the wetlands regulations, including but not limited to section 211-7E5, alternatively considered and rejected. The commission did not find the proposed activity significant, and the commission finds that the criteria set forth in section 211-10B have been met by the applicant.
Exactly. Okay. Now, any more questions about this or discussion?
No?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
patience.
Thank you for your time. Tell Giuliano's they never want to have a public hearing.
Right, hopefully you're being paid well enough.
I would not be the one presenting at that. I couldn't do all of that. Thank you.
Ooh, where did I put it? I managed to.
You seem to be organized.
Everything's in shambles.
Knows where it all is.
You're like my daughter.
Organized chaos.
Organization.
My piles.
Well, now it's like everything just kept getting handed up from. Oh, I found it. Okay. All right, I'll keep it brief. So suddenly, just as I thought foundation replacements were kind of wrapping up, we got a 3 or 4 all at once. One of those has wetlands for Bradley. So I've been back and forth, actually, with all of the foundation replacements, even the ones without wetlands, requesting erosion sediment control plans. But in particular, the one with wetlands, we went back and forth a little bit about the placement of silt fence and made sure the contractor was aware. Because in this case, the wetland does come pretty close to the house location. For Bradley. Like it intersects with King.
But is that,
Okay.
that's not one of the newer houses? Like
No, it's not one of the newer ones. No, I don't think I brought.
Oldest house in the
I don't think I brought a picture of it. And then it's got a long driveway It's like the house is set really far back.
Like raised ranches, yeah.
Yeah. But we did have a delineation of the wetland, so it couldn't have been that old, unless they did something else. But I had an actual delineation. And then I don't have any update on 330 South Road because we just keep getting snow. Well, maybe now with the warmer weather I'll be able to see something out there, but we just kept getting snow piled and piled. I did have a conversation with the property owner, but haven't actually visited to move towards possibly some sort of resolution. Let's see. We can't actually receive anything at a special meeting, but because this is technically a special meeting because we held it half hour early, but technically, as of tonight's regular meeting that was canceled, a new application is received and could be acted on at the next meeting for just a one-lot subdivision on Durkee Road. So I can send you those materials as well between meetings for you to review. And then, and then on 143 Four Bridges Road, that's Grower Direct's newer location. They've been trying to figure out a location for a propane tank. I believe, yeah, a very large propane. I think it was 30,000 gallons. I'm trying to remember. And the location they originally proposed was very close to wetlands, and we're back and forth. I got a new location that seemed right on the edge of 100 feet. I'm trying to get it more.
So how is that any less dangerous than have to come here?
Well, so that's a question that they could apply for jurisdictional ruling, but if they wanted to avoid the process altogether, they could cite it further away, but they might not be able to, so it might come before you, possibly jurisdictional.
Above ground or really ground?
Above ground. And then, let's see. I think that's all I've got for staff report.
Wow. Motion to.
It's mostly been.
Motion that we accept Elena's report, staff report.
I Stafford and Summer, they built a lot of it.
Oh, yeah. And most of my time's really been spent talking to many concerned residents about the public hearing that we had.
Oh, God, yeah.
I
can just imagine. I seconded Lisa's, aye.
The first one who made that.
I think that's
Candace?
And I seconded.
Okay.
Just that it's mostly done.
Can rewatch it on the.
I do have bills.
Oh, gosh, are we?
You can actually download a transcript from it, from YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, you know, it
Doesn't always get your words right, but it's pretty close.
Is it?
Well, just a comment under staff report.
Yeah.
So we were told, since the town did not update the plan conservation and development in 2025 as required by state law, but they did a quick rewrite kind of in-house, and really nobody had any input, and we were told that, it was just to get us, and then this year they would do a new one. And then I heard Todd Rowland say at a selectmen's meeting or something that no, they didn't have plans to do a new one. Then I read in, I think it might have been PZC minutes or somewhere, there is no plan to rewrite it until 2029. So I don't know why we were told otherwise. So we are functioning under a plan that we have no input in, and
I think it was on the record at one of their planning and zoning meetings, not the February one, but the January one. They stated that that was a quick one, and that they were going to look at a more comprehensive one.
but not until 2020.
They didn't say when. Yeah, that was the thing.
No, I read that somewhere, because that disturbed me, because we had been told that it would be redone this year.
I saw that,
What'd you see,
that one that attends our meetings sometimes.
There's some Curtis.
Curtis, he's on the board?
He's on EDC.
Economic board, and he mentioned that plan on one of his, like, he's gonna be looking at that closely, so.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's gonna be looked at more in town, so maybe they will.
And it's
Table inspections.
and we are supposed to consider it in the context of applications that we're voting on and whether they are consistent.
So at 2 meetings you heard 2029?
No,
Or
I read it in some minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, or something.
Is that, Joanna, is that something that you can follow up with?
Yeah, that's why I'm making a note about it, because, yeah, I'll ask about it, because, yeah, I was under the impression that, like, this year did start a process, so.
Because it's every 4 years, right? It has to, every 5, okay.
No, I'll ask about that.
And joking aside, you were just talking about Bradley Road, and I happened to drive by Bradley Road a lot, and that's something that went in, I don't know how many years ago that was, but right.
Like on King and Bradley.
If you look at that subdivision and the plan of conservation development, they're apples and oranges. Like that's.
It's an interesting subdivision.
Yeah, and it's in my opinion, it's the reason why we need a plan like that, So, and
We need somebody to make sure that we follow it.
Yeah.
Not
sleep with all the policies and procedures.
Yeah, we make these plans and we stick it on the shelf and until someone like Sean comes along that cares about the plan.
It keeps falling asleep. I don't blame it though.
All right. Oh, you have bills.
I do have bills. I have lots of, so the additional signs that we had to have made, we had 20 new signs made because we've never had a property for a public hearing with so much frontage, and our regs require a sign every 200 feet of frontage, and there's frontage on 3 roads, and it was, so we had 20 additional signs made, and the engineer made comment of how they had to pick them up. The signs weren't ready on Thursday, and Town Hall's closed Friday, so they went and picked them up from DG Graphics on Friday to get them up, so they'd be up for 10 days before the public. Anyway, so that was the whole thing. But anyway, it's $240 from DG Graphics.
The town pays for a private application.
We provide the signs, yeah.
That's at least a local business. Good job.
Do you want all the bills, or you want one at a time? I have 3 bills. I have Journal Enquirer so the notice of our decision from the February meeting was $47.22, but then the 2 legal notices announcing this public hearing were $157.40.
Wow.
I know.
I move that we pay the bills.
Do we have money?
I know, hopefully.
1 second.
We'll figure it.
Kristen doesn't get any money this year.
I know. We have to use our special projects for signs.
For the Boy Scouts for something.
So every special use permit or anything that requires a notice?
We should get them back. So we've had just 6 signs forever. We just needed more, but they should be giving them back to us if they're not completely destroyed by plows.
And yeah, I get
You
that.
cut?
I'm like,
No. This is called the Sunbelt Conference. It's a different conference.
The way it was written, it was like
Carolina.
just referred to the property frontage. So I just
These was hurt.
I didn't want that to be
I
separate them. 8 of them were exact.
Southern girls are rough down there.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody thought it was a lagoon. I'm watching it.
Yeah. Something like Jay was saying, they have to go back and stick them on top of the snow.
Yeah.
The
The timing was terrible.
Good, you can't allow that.
Okay, I think we voted
Yeah.
on that.
Not yet, almost. Almost.
No other correspondence.
Did you have
Minutes approval?
I went today to the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists conference down in Southington. It was, I always enjoy it. I did end up leaving before the last two presentations because I just wanted to get here, and it was like too stressful.
My emails are like a thousand times.
No, you're fine.
A Zoom meeting regarding the spade foot.
Oh, good. Oh, for all those that attended at Kakiwik?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because they're in an area, I mean, they're very almost extinct.
Yeah.
We're in an area that potentially.
Well, this gentleman did a lot of work.
Yeah. The spade foot toad.
No, he did a lot of work.
Oh, nice.
Certainly.
Yeah, let us know.
Certainly, it should go to, this should go to,
And I was thinking,
zoning.
Jeremiah Bridge, we could just.
That's really
I knew this was going to happen. They had a public hearing, they talked about it.
Right, minutes approval.
I know.
I didn't see anything.
I have one comment, and I just want to state on the record that the minutes, the level of detail, I don't know how you do it.
It's superb.
And it
I agree.
needs to be mentioned because, like, this stuff, especially with, like, the violations and all this stuff, like, I feel like.
You did a fabulous job. Your review too helped.
And now you have to write in the minutes that you did an excellent job on the minutes.
I'll do that.
He wants it on the record.
And that tells you nothing about what happened.
Yeah, this helped me to catch up. It helped me to
Yeah,
catch
because
up.
for a while someone did use a laptop and do them, but then now with the
Yes.
combined commission, I don't know.
Yes.
I'm not talking to her, but she wasn't typing it.
No.
Maybe she typed it out.
I don't, there used to be a commission member, but I'll ask.
I mean, okay. No, go ahead, honey.
Who's accepting the minutes?
Minutes and a motion to thank Sydney.
Wow, and no edits.
And Sydney seconded herself. Her compliment. Her compliment.
Yeah.
I'm seconding the meeting. The minutes approval. You're voting,
Why not?
absolutely.
I must be adjourned.
Unfortunately,
It's 9:34.
Well, if you ever go to the Summers camera page, that's where all the meetings are posted on YouTube. Ours is always the longest one.
So what do I do? So if I want to go onto YouTube to see everything.
I'll send you the link to the Summers camera, and then you can see all the Board of Selectmen, all the meetings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Did anyone second that?
I second.
You can watch you from tonight. You can just. Sorry.
Yes.
Going on board.
Really, thanks.